a lot of different streams of income, and for them it's very true. 85% of what they grow is heirloom or open pollinated. They experiment with some hybrids, but they said they've had very good luck with heirlooms in their region. And they were actually surprised that the Neptune tomato that they grew this year, which is an heirloom, it actually did better against blight and drought than the Better Boy hybrid that they tried. And so they were really surprised. It was sweeter, produced better. That was really exciting for us to hear. So, but it just depends on where you're growing your heirloom varieties. So Cliff Slade, for example, is a farmer also in Virginia. He's a Virginia State Extension worker as well, and he does a lot of experimenting with both open pollinated and hybrid varieties. He says he'll replace hybrids when he can find one that he feels confident will do just as well. Like, for example, he said that the Champion collard, he's found that he's really satisfied with the yield and the quality, but for example with the turnips, he gets double the yield with the hybrid variety. So he says he experiments every year. He's always finding new open pollinated varieties that do well, but he says it's a slow, gradual experimentation process. Like, a lot of farmers have been relying on hybrids, and now that there's this more of this awakening towards going to open pollinateds, he said people got to take it slow and just experiment. Try one new variety at a time, see if it works for you, and that's a really good way to do it. So Cliff is a third-generation farmer. I love this picture. This is little Cliff right here, looking kind of grumpy. He said that growing up, his daddy used to work his butt off out in the fields, and he said, I'm never going to be a farmer, but eventually the farm called to him and he had to come back. His daddy and his granddaddy farmed that land, so it was really special to him. And when he first got back after college, he was growing GMO corn and soy, but he told me he had this aha moment about six years ago where he was doing a 20 variety trial as part of his work with the extension office, and one of the varieties was GMO, and just like the past presenter was saying, he noticed that the wildlife were not touching the GMO, the Roundup Ready variety at all. They're completely avoiding it, and he thought, wow, wildlife must have some intuitive sense of why this isn't good or natural, and it totally changed his perspective on farming. And so he decided to consolidate, and now he's just doing 2 acres of organic seed and produce, and he says that he's making more money on those 2 acres than he could have on hundreds of acres of GMO soy and corn. He's making $40,000 on the 2 acres, whereas his big tractor farmer neighbors, as he calls them, are doing like $30 to $40 profit per acre, and they're continually getting loans to pay for their diesel tractors. They're in debt. He says he feels so blessed to be able to operate out of pocket, and he works just as hard on his 2 acres as his neighbors do, but he really believes in his product. He knows that the seeds and the produce that he's selling are really high quality, and wildlife will probably eat them happily. So Cliff told me that he loves growing seeds because he thinks it's so easy compared to growing produce for market. So he was telling me about lima beans, right? When you're picking lima beans for market, you have a 3-day window, that's it. Then, they've got to be ready to go. When you're harvesting for seed, you can take your sweet time, you have a whole month. He said that's just amazing, and he loves that, it's so easy. He also told me that seed saving for him means part of preserving a legacy. So I was talking about his daddy here, who was a farmer, and varieties are disappearing all the time, like this variety of sweet potato his dad planted, often called Virginia Baker. Right when Cliff said, I never want to be a farmer again, and left, his dad got sick, and this variety, Virginia Baker, slipped into obscurity. Cliff has no idea what's happened to it. It seems to have disappeared, and he said, I would give my right arm to have some of those slips again. So if anyone knows about the Virginia Baker, tell me after this. We can make Cliff a happy man. So I talked to Debbie Pisen from Twin Oak Seeds and Living Energy Farm in Louisa, Virginia, and she agrees with Cliff that Harvesting and selling seed is so efficient and easy. It's a great way for a farmer to make a great dollar per hour on organic land. She loves how you don't have to plant in succession like you would for markets. So you plant and harvest everything all at once, which she feels is amazingly efficient. Actually, she gave me a whole list of why she loves seed saving. No extended harvest, as I said. You don't have to be concerned about appearances. You know, how does the produce look? Great winter work and winter income. So she was telling me okra, corn, other things you can plant and just leave them out to dry. And then in November, when you have nothing better to do on your farm, you can go deal with them, which is really great. And then you can also grow for optimal conditions for the plants. So let's say you're growing cucumber for markets. You want to be the first person with cucumbers at the market. So you're going to try to get those seeds in the ground when the ground's cold. You're going to be trying to force those plants to produce before they naturally want to. But when you're growing for seed, you can plant the cucumbers when the ground's already warm. The cucumbers love it. You don't have to force them to do something they would naturally want to do. So she feels like it's more in tune with natural cycles, which means a lot to her. So Twin Oaks Seeds and Living Energy Farm have about 10 acres total of gardens, and they make $50,000 on those 10 acres. They sell to SCSC, Baker Creek, Fedco, and Seed Savers Exchange, and they sell extra produce to the local food hub. So again, you know, multiple streams of income, they said, is very important. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I just really think this picture is kind of amazing of a million tomatoes and all of the fermented goop next to it. She was saying that seed saving is really messy, but it's really fun when you have a team doing it with you. You can just get all messy and squish all the stuff, and it smells really bad though. So to Debbie, raising seeds is important because it represents reclaiming control of your food supply. You know, she said that she was growing some modern varieties and that she had to stop growing because Monsanto was claiming the patent on them, and she thinks that the "we own the seed" attitude is totally ridiculous, and that every grower should know how to save at least one kind of seed as just a political act of saying, you know, this is my food supply, I know what I'm doing. So I want to talk a little bit about what's the Monsanto case. I want to talk about how patenting life got started. So in 1980, there was a court case, Diamond versus Chakrabarti, and in that case, the Supreme Court ruled that a live, man-made microorganism, in this case one that could eat crude oil, was patentable. And in the 90s, it became clear that this could be applied to plants as well. So suddenly, 65% of the world's proprietary seeds were owned by these 4 companies who previously had showed very little interest in seeds. And it's interesting to think, why did they suddenly become so interested in this? I mean, he who controls the food supply controls the nation, right? SCSC even helped the Moyers keep a family agricultural tradition alive. So they recently learned that their ancestors were broom makers. So they would grow broom corn. This is a picture of broom corn right here. And they would make their own brooms. And after a couple generations, this was lost. But their son recently found out that SCSC sells some broom corn, so they bought some, and the son's growing it out, and he's going to be making brooms and selling them at market this fall. So we were really excited about that. You know, we're proud that Heirloom seed saving can keep a tradition like that alive. So next I want to talk about the Smythe family of Rehoboth Farm in Virginia. They got connected to us through the Moyers, and they've been saving lots of seeds for us for 3 years. They do corn, peanuts, flowers, all kinds of veggies. And they're also a very large family affair. They have 4 generations living on the farm, including a family of 10 and a family of 14. And all of them are involved in the seed growing and harvesting. Here are some of the kids. So they say that heirloom seed growing is important for them because it's part of a diversified farm income. You know, a lot of the farmers I talked to said you can't really just rely on one thing when you're trying